No, you must listen to me, Captain. You must listen.
Listen to this.
Welcome back, movie fans. Let's dive into one of Romero's goriest productions, Day of the Dead, 1985. Now sit back and get back in your chair as I rapid fire some of the top IMDb trivia facts. And as always, if you learned something new today, please consider liking the video and subscribing to support my small channel. All of the historical buildings featured in the opening sequence was filmed in Fort Myers, Florida. The buildings are preserved and still intact. According to Laurie Cardille, the first attempt to shoot the beginning dream sequence where the zombie arms suddenly spring out of the wall and attack her resulted in the faux wall and many of the actors behind it toppling over onto her. The wall ended up needing to be completely rebuilt, this time much more stable. During the opening dream sequence when zombie arms attacked Sarah through the wall, one of them was Laurie Cardille's husband. Some of the headlines from the newspaper shown in the opening sequence include "The Dead Walk," "Vice President Declares State of Emergency," "Whereabouts of President Unknown," "Food Supply Dwindles," and "Man Bites Man." The original script, for which George A. Romero couldn't get the budget, involved the scientists living above ground in a fortress, protected by electrified fences, and the military living safely underground. It also involved a small army of trained zombies, and the conclusion to the trilogy more brutal than the released version. This later became the basis of Land of the Dead, 2005. All of the extras who portrayed zombies in the climax received for their services a cap that said, "I played a zombie in Day of the Dead," a copy of the newspaper from the beginning of the film, the one that says "The Dead Walk," and $1. Although the lowest grossing film in George A. Romero's Dead trilogy, it gained a cult following over the last 3 decades. The underground facility was not on a soundstage. It was shot in the Wampum Mine, a former limestone mine near Pittsburgh that was being used for an underground storage facility. The 2.5 million square foot mine is now operated as the Gateway Commerce Center and referred to as a subsurface storage facility. Though the mine maintained a constant temperature of about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, its high humidity played havoc with the crew's equipment and props. Mechanical and electrical failures were a constant problem throughout filming and caused several of Tom Savini's props to fail during the filming. Despite these failures, Savini was nominated and won the 1985 Saturn Award for Best Makeup Effects. The remote location also complicated the transportation of crew members and equipment. Cast and crew would often sleep in the mine overnight to avoid the time-consuming travel to and from the shooting location. During a vacation break in filming, makeup artist Greg Nicotero used the realistic and gruesome model of his own head, as seen in a laboratory scene in the film, to play a practical joke on his mother. First attempts to shoot the scene where Sarah performed surgery on Miguel's arm failed when the machete simply bounced off the rubber, so Tom Savini remade it in wax, and it worked perfectly. Although never confirmed, it has been rumored by fans that the character Joe Pilato, played in The Dawn of the Dead 1978, is in fact Rhodes as a cop. Fans believe that Rhodes started out as a cop, then later joined the army and became a captain. Since no passage of time is given in the Dead films, it is very possible that years lapsed between Dawn and Day of the Dead, and that Rhodes' character could have went from being a cop to an army captain. During Miguel's sedation, character Sarah told Miguel to actually slap her to make it look more authentic. The budget for George A. Romero's original script was estimated at $7 million, but he would only be given the money if he could film an R-rated film. He was told that if he went ahead and shot an unrated film with no limits on gore, the budget would be split in half to $3.5 million. Pat Logan, who played Uncle Reach in Night of the Living Dead 1990, appears as a bald mustached zombie shot by steel in the mines. Tony Todd auditioned for the role of John. He would later play the lead role in Night of the Living Dead, 1990. All above-ground scenes were filmed at several locations around Florida, where George A. Romero was living at the time. There was a large problem with the scenes with guns firing, as the blanks used would almost never be caught on film due to the camera's shutter. This made director George A. Romero animate almost all of the guns' muzzle flashes in post-production. Actress Laurie Cardille also described using the Uzi during filming as having such a large recoil kick that it physically forced her backwards. The large column building in the opening scene, filmed in Fort Myers, is now an art museum and used to host an annual zombie fest known as ZombieCon. Dr. Logan figures that the ratio of the undead to the human survivors is 400,000 to 1. When the film was made in 1985, the population of the United States in our universe stood at about 240 million. If Dr. Logan is correct, the US population of the universe stood at roughly 600 living human beings left in the USA. Private Steele performs the sign of the cross with his MGC replica M1911A1 pistol before committing suicide. The replica pistol was used for safety purposes, and that the back of the head exploding was a squib effect and no blanks were used. George A. Romero held a great appreciation for the talent community in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and utilized the same casting agency that he had used for Dawn of the Dead 1978. He specifically requested that all extras previously contracted for Dawn of the Dead be called back for casting in Day of the Dead, which is why many of the zombies that appear in this film may look familiar. This is also how Joe Pilato, who also appeared only briefly in the previous film, got his part in the main cast. Joe Pilato's line, "choke on them," as he's being ripped apart by zombies, was ad-libbed by the actor. The blood and entrails used in the disemboweling of Captain Rhodes were real. Pig intestines and blood were procured from a nearby slaughterhouse and used to make the scene. During filming, the refrigerator that housed the intestines and blood was unplugged by custodial staff, and the entrails started to spoil, causing most of those involved to become physically sick. George A. Romero had originally planned for all the zombies to perish in a massive explosion when they stumbled across explosive chemicals in the laboratory. Meanwhile, one of the crew members who had died during the attack was to have stayed dead and not come back as a zombie, thereby giving hope to the survivors. This is the only movie in George A. Romero's Dead series where a zombie has a line of dialogue. Bub says, "Hello, Aunt Alicia." Some viewers attribute another line to him, but this is disputed. When Sarah enters Logan's lab, she is startled when Bub emerges from the shadows behind her. After this, he moans something that some fans believe is, "I'm sorry." In the last work of Romero, the book The Living Dead, it is revealed the 3 survivors from Day of the Dead did not survive and became zombies on the island. And so that about wraps it up for another amazing zombie movie. Let me know in the comments which Romero film is your ultimate go-to zombie flick. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and remember to keep watching that cinema and stay cool, guys.
Maybe he figured we was getting too big for our britches. Trying to figure his shit out.